The anime is set in a magical academy on an island called Mistogan that floats in the sky. In the Magic Academy, each student is trained to gain their magic power and fighting abilities to defeat the Beetle monsters that often invade Mistogan Island. At that time, civilization on the Earth's surface had been destroyed by the Beetle monsters' attack, so the remaining humans moved to Mistogan Island and lived on the island. Therefore, it was important for every generation of humans present on the island to develop themselves and evolve into a stronger group. At one time, a horde of Beetle monsters came around Mistogan Island, so the best wizards from the Sky Wizard Academy were assigned to fight against these monsters. At that time, a great male wizard named Kanata Age and his friends were mobilized to fight against the Beetle monster and protect Mistogan Island. Soon after, Kanata fought in the front row with his three friends, Yuri Floster, Chloe Seveny, and Lloyd Alwyn. They used all their strength and abilities to prevent the thousands of Beetle monsters from attacking Mistogan Island. Unfortunately, even though they had managed to kill a lot of beetles, the monsters still continued to arrive in such large numbers that they were increasingly cornered. Seeing the increasingly precarious situation, Kanata asked Yuri and the others to retreat and protect Mistogan Island while he faced all the remaining monsters alone. Because Yuri was badly injured, Lloyd and Chloe decided to return to Mistogan Island and entrust everything to Kanata. Just as Kanata was about to issue the ultimate attack, a giant beetle monster suddenly appeared among the beetles and started shooting a beam of light at him. But he kept calm and prepared to deal with the attack with one final strike using his magic sword. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurred, and a very bright light filled the sky. The scene switches to the moment when the situation on Mistogan Island is safe again, and Kanata has returned to his usual activities in Sky Wizard. That day, Chloe gave a report to the head of the Sky Wizard Academy, Rico Flamel, regarding 3 female students who had no achievements and were in danger of being expelled from the academy. The 3 students referred to by Chloe are Misora Whitale, a girl who has never had any achievements; Lecty Eisenach, a girl who is very shy and rarely socializes with other students; Rico Flamel, Freon's younger sister, who is very narcissistic and thinks she is an incarnation of a goddess. Hearing that, Freon felt that the 3 girls needed a different instructor from the other student instructors. Therefore, she asked Chloe to summon Kanata to her office so she could give him a special task. Meanwhile, Lloyd approached Kanata, who was doing an inspection at the Sky Wizard Academy's file warehouse to audit the inventory on Mistogan Island. Kanata felt that the stockpile of weapons in their academy was often running low, so he suspected that someone was secretly stealing the supplies. Lloyd then told Kanata to go to the academy head's office during lunchtime because Freon wanted to discuss something with him. Even though he was reluctant to go to her office, he still went there and met the head of the academy. As Kanata was about to head to another academy building, he accidentally bumped into Masora, who was enjoying jam buns in the backyard. As a result, her jam bun fell right on top of his pants, making Masora think of Kanata as a pervert. Just as she was about to nag Kanata, he suddenly disappeared from her presence and went to the field sink to wash his pants. At the same time, Rico, who was always being narcissistic, was there and accused Kanata of being a pervert because he was only wearing boxer shorts. Rico turned around while talking about her beauty charm and thought that Kanata had taken off his pants because he was fascinated by her. But when Rico turned around, Kanata again suddenly disappeared and moved to a nearby bathroom to put on his pants. Unfortunately, the same thing happened again to him. He accidentally met Lecty, who was changing clothes in the bathroom. She was surprised to see him, who appeared in the women's bathroom wearing only boxer shorts. As a result, she accused Kanata of being a pervert, the same as the 2 girls had done before. Kanata then walked to the academy's administration building to meet Freon while regretting his decision to take a shortcut and having to meet the 3 girls. In her office, academy students who saw Kanata always looked cynically at him and accused him of being a traitor. When Kanata passed the stairs, he ran into Yuri, who called him a traitor. It's still unknown why many people call him a traitor, but based on Yuri's reaction, it's related to the incident where the Beetle and his team attacked. When Kanata arrived at Freon's office, she explained that he would be assigned as an instructor of the 3 worst students in the academy that semester. Kanata originally intended to refuse the assignment, but he was forced to take up the instructor's assignment because no other instructors were available. After receiving the files from the 3 exiles, Kanata went to the Fire Team E601 class to meet his students. As he walked down the academy corridors, he again received ridicule from other academy students who considered him a traitor. However, he didn't care about the insults, as if he was used to such treatment. Meanwhile, Masora, Lecty, and Rico were discussing the perverted youth they had previously met, and shortly after, the person they were talking about suddenly appeared in their class. Kanata then introduced himself as their new instructor, and the reactions of the 3 girls looked less than happy after finding out that the person who was going to be their instructor was a pervert. Even more so when they found out that Kanata was a person who had been known as a traitor in the academy. Misora refused to accept Kanata as their new instructor because she saw him as an apathetic person who didn't bother to know their characteristics. But Kanata refuted the accusation by reading out all the information he had gathered from the files of the 3 girls. However, Misora was still reluctant to accept Kanata as her instructor. She explained that Kanata had fought against the Beetle monsters 6 months ago and survived the attack. But after that incident, he refused to carry out any other missions for the past 6 months, making his team fail to take a very important level-up exam. Since then, Kanata has been dubbed a traitor because he has made his team and academy lose hope. However, he informed them that it was the academy's decision that he would remain their instructor even if they didn't like him. Kanata then told the 3 girls that he had once held the title of a great magic swordsman and was nicknamed Black Swordmaster. Kanata claims he can train them to become stronger and more powerful warriors than the other students. Hearing that, Masora and the other 2 girls became interested in learning sword techniques from him and began to get excited about their training. In the first training, Kanata will test the abilities of the 3 girls by fighting head-to-head in the sky. He flies using a flying board and says he can still face the 3 girls even though he doesn't use flying magic. Confidently, he told the 3 girls that the training would end if they could defeat him. Soon after, Kanata went through the clouds to await the attacks of the 3 girls while Masora and the other 2 girls started chasing him separately. He regretted that they didn't go after him in groups or use any strategy. During the training, Kanata began to analyze the abilities possessed by each student to find out their strengths and weaknesses. He found that Masora had movement speed and stamina, which was great enough that he began to maneuver in various directions to make it difficult for Masora to find him. Shortly after, Lecty appeared behind Kanata and prepared to do a melee attack using her sword. When she attacks, Kanata concludes that Lecty has quite agile and accurate movements, but she is still often hesitant to issue attacks and often apologizes to him. He realizes that Lecty has considerable potential, but he still has to train her to overcome the doubts within her. At the same time, Kanata began to feel the emergence of attacks from a distance originating from the aiming signal of the laser that was about to be fired by Rico. Fortunately, he dodged the light bullet and protected Lecty from the shot. He realized that among his 3 students, Rico was the one who was the best at analyzing. Kanata finds out that Rico purposely weakened her firepower upon knowing that the light bullet was about to hit Lecty, but Rico didn't want to admit it because she felt proud in front of him. On the other hand, Misora was still flying in all directions to find Kanata and still failed to find him anywhere. In the afternoon, he decided to end the training for the day so that the 3 students could rest. Arriving at the academy dormitory, Misora and the other 2 girls felt frustrated that they couldn't beat Kanata alone. In the evening, Kanata came to the academy dormitory to visit the rooms of his 3 students. But when he arrived, the 3 girls were shocked because Kanata suddenly entered their room while changing clothes. They then pointed their guns at him and asked him to leave their room. On the next day's training, Kanata told his 3 students that he would provide special training to each student with different training. Rico, who always thought of herself as a goddess, was reluctant to join the special training, so she chose to leave the lesson. However, Kanata made no effort to stop Rico and let her do what she wanted, while Lecty and Masora would still carry out the special training separately. He then invites Lecty to the shopping center to buy a sexy maid costume. Afterward, Kanata ordered Lecty to distribute 100 flyers in front of the mall building while wearing these costumes. She felt very embarrassed and nervous, but she continued to do the activity as best she could because Kanata was part of the special training. As for Masora, Kanata orders her to follow Rico all day and discover her 2 weaknesses. At first, she refuses to do that because she doesn't know much about Rico, but because Kanata forced her, Masora is forced to follow Rico secretly. On the other hand, Lecty is still trying to muster her courage to distribute the flyer to mall customers. As the boys approached her, she became more nervous and panicked, but she tried to use the opportunity to distribute the flyers to them. After the first challenge was successfully passed, she slowly began to dare to distribute the flyer to more visitors. Meanwhile, Masora, who had been assigned to follow Rico from the start, is caught by her, making her think that Masora is fascinated by her charisma. Then Rico invited her to do activities together, and she was happy to do that. As far as Masora observed, Rico has a very random taste. She likes to buy philosophical books that are very difficult to understand but like cute stuffed sheep. Seeing Rico's strange tastes and actions, Masora was confused about her weakness. Unlike Masora, who is still having trouble carrying out her mission, Lecty has gotten used to the crowds and is starting to dare to distribute flyers to every visitor. As a result, she completed the special task and went straight to Kanata, who was relaxing in a cafe. Kanata praised Lecty for having the courage to face her fear and gave her the next special task. He said that he had registered Lecty as a part-time waitress at the cafe, and from that day on, she would work serving every customer in the cafe. When Lecty appeared in front of the cafe, the patrons started calling her to deliver their orders. Moreover, when they saw her still wearing a sexy maid outfit, the male visitors scrambled to give orders to her. Lecty again felt nervous because the visitors teased her, making her feel embarrassed, and she ran away. At the same time, Lloyd, who happened to come to the cafe, realized that the girl in maid clothes was Kanata's student. Shortly after, Masora came to the cafe and approached Lecty, who was hiding in an elevator. After Misora learns about Lecty's special training, she decides to help Lecty by dressing up in sexy clothes and helping serve the customers. The male customers seemed happy with their presence in the cafe because they could enjoy the beautiful scenery for free. When Lecty saw Misora's agility in taking orders and serving customers, she was amazed by the confidence that Misora had. At the same time, Lloyd calls Lecty to advise her about her social anxiety problem. He tells her to believe in the training provided by Kanata and begins to learn to socialize with Misora. As time passes, Lloyd believes that Lecty will become more confident and have the same spirit as Misora. After hearing his advice, Lecty became more confident to undergo the training and learn to communicate well with customers. In the afternoon, after the special training, Kanata treated Misora and Lecty to some ice cream and invited them to relax in the city park. Lecty then said that she already knew the purpose of Kanata's special training, to eliminate her social anxiety. On the other hand, Misora started to complain that she failed to complete the special task given by Kanata. She began to realize that she had not been able to get to know her friends well because she didn't know anything about the social anxiety that Lecty had. Kanata then said that, in fact, Misora has learned to find her own weaknesses through the training. He advised her to understand these weaknesses and learn to overcome them. That night while in the office, Kanata began to study Misora's files to analyze her potential. He was surprised that Misora attacked more often using her sword than her magic power, even though her sword ability was very weak while her magic power was much higher. Chloe, who overheard this, seemed amazed by Kanata's sincerity in teaching the 3 students. She wondered how Kanata would explore the potential of the 3 students considered the most stupid in the academy. The next day when class started, Kanata ordered Misora to stop using the sword and focus on magic defense techniques because her sword skills were terrible. Unfortunately, she refused to give up her sword skills even though Kanata had given her that assessment. Misora said that at first, she thought Kanata was a great teacher, but after hearing that request, she again felt disappointed in him. While holding back her tears, Misora immediately ran away from the classroom. It turned out that she didn't want to let go of her sword because of the memories left behind by her late mother, Sosie Whitale. In the previous generation, Sosie Whitale was one of the most outstanding sword knights in the Sky Wizard Academy, and was able to defeat hundreds of beetle monsters in one fell swoop. Many were amazed by her greatness, and one of the people greatly inspired by her power was Misora herself. That's why, since Kanata ordered Misora to stop practicing the sword, she felt very sad and often visited her mother's grave. She didn't even come to the Sky Wizard Academy and didn't show up to the cafe to help out Lecty for the past few days. After realizing that Misora had been absent from the academy for a few days, Kanata felt sorry for her and decided to pay a visit to Misora's family's steakhouse. When he arrives, he meets Misora's father, a famous chef in the city. When Misora saw Kanata's arrival at the entrance, she left her work and hurried away. After she left, Kanata approached Misora's father and introduced himself as Misora's teacher at the academy. Then Kanata saw Misora's mother's photo and said that Misora really looked like her mother. Misora's father told him that the photo was the only way they could remember her. As it turned out, whenever a Sky Wizard knight like Sosie was killed, everyone would automatically forget about that person. Misora was the only person who still had many memories of her mother, so she often told other people about Sosie. Misora's father then told about Misora's small life, where her mother spent most of her time as a Sky Wizard knight, so she had to act as a housekeeper. Whenever Sosie returned home after serving as a knight, she always tried to be a good mother to Misora. Even though she often made mistakes, Misora always felt happy when she saw her mother return home. Every time Sosie came home, she took Misora to fly around the city and tried to entertain Misora in her spare time. Whenever Misora heard the news that Sosie was coming home, she always asked her father to prepare steak for Sosie. But one day, when Misora asked her father to cook steak for her mother, he suddenly didn't remember anything about Sosie. It turned out that day Sosie was declared dead after she fought a very strong enemy, and the only person who remembered her was Misora. Misora's father only remembered Sosie after the Sky Wizard officers came to inform him of Sosie's death and handed over her magic sword to Misora. Since then, Misora has been determined to become a great sword knight like her mother. After hearing the story, Kanata met Misora at Sosie's grave and asked her to let go of her sword one last time. But Misora still refused to do that and insisted on continuing to practice using her sword to become a sword knight like her mother. She said that the sword was the last piece she had from her mother, so let go of the sword was tantamount to forgetting her own mother. Seeing Misora's determination, Kanata smiled and said that she could still use her sword as a weapon. He only wanted to test her willpower. Now he knows how to practice her sword skills. Hearing that, she promised that she would do her best to improve her sword skills. The next day, Kanata retrained Misora and Lecty to fight in the skies and asked the two to start taking all training seriously. Along with the training period, he registered his team to participate in a tournament that will be held in the next few days. He even collects data about the team that will be his team's opponent to develop a battle strategy. He realizes that the 3 students who will be his team's opponents are tough opponents, but Kanata remains optimistic and prepares the best strategy. Unlike Misora and Lecty, who underwent intensive training, Rico chose to be relaxed and rarely attended special training. Rico continues to be narcissistic and thinks a goddess like her doesn't need to undergo additional training or follow academy rules. After preparing for a long time, Rico didn't go straight to the academy for training but preferred to relax in a cafe. Coincidentally, she met Kanata at the cafe and began to tell him that she had just met a beautiful figure from another world. However, Kanata thought that Rico had just seen a ghost or supernatural being, but it turned out that the beautiful woman she was referring to was herself reflected in the mirror. Kanata couldn't help but smile at that statement and got used to her narcissistic attitude. He even complied with her wish when Rico said she would not attend special training for the next few days. The next day when Rico came to class, Misora and Lecty asked her to train with them. However, Rico refused because a goddess like her didn't need such training. Misora still didn't give up and tried to persuade her to join the training together because they would be participating in a match. Unfortunately, she refuses to join them again because she doesn't want to embarrass herself in a match they won't win. Kanata, who heard Rico's statement, admitted that avoiding a fight that was impossible to win was the right course of action, but he claimed that he already had the plan to win the match. Kanata then invited Misora to practice swordsmanship in the sky and showed her a secret sword technique. After he summoned his magic sword, Kanata gathered a lot of magic energy in the blade of the sword before he finally shot all the magic energy toward the sky to create a powerful explosion. Misora then tried to do the same technique with the help of directions from Kanata and succeeded on the first try. Unfortunately, her energy was still not strong enough that Misora could only fire the sword cannon 3 times a day. On the other hand, Rico began to observe Misora and Lecty's training using her clairvoyant vision power. When Rico saw Misora's cannon fire technique and Lecty's acrobatic sword technique, she thought Kanata could strengthen the 2 poor girls. While Rico was busy observing them from under the sky, Kanata suddenly appeared behind her to ask her opinion about the training. Rico said the sword cannon technique he taught was great but ineffective in combat because charging magic on the blade would take more time, and the enemies would have a chance to attack Misora before she had a chance to launch an attack. Kanata was aware of that from the start, but Rico's analytical skills and Lecty's close combat could cover all of those weaknesses. He said that each person's role is very important, and the key to victory lies with all team members. Therefore, he wants Rico to join her team to participate in the match and support her friends so they can win the match. Hearing this, Rico was surprised because Kanata had never forced her to participate in special training, as if he had no interest in training her. Kanata said he trained Misora and Lecty more so their abilities could be on the same level as Rico's. Hearing that, she felt proud of herself because Kanata had recognized her ability, so she decided to join the competition. On the next day, when the match was about to start, Rico and the rest of the team rushed to the arena. Unfortunately, just before the match started, the Mistogan defense announced an attack by Beetle monsters around the island. As a result, the match had to be postponed because everyone would be evacuated, while the best Sky Wizard Knights would be deployed to fight against the monsters. Chloe, Yuri, and Lloyd had prepared on one side of the island to face the Beetle monsters, while Kanata chose to help the officers evacuate the residents. But not long after that, some of the Beetle monsters managed to break through one of the island's shields and sneak in through the gaps of the hole. Hundreds of demon beetles invade the island area, and Kanata's team decides to help deal with the beetles before a big mess occurs. Soon after, Misora filled her sword with magical energy and fired a sword cannon at the beetles. However, because she was still not proficient with the sword, she still couldn't control her power, so the resulting cannon fire was too large and damaged the island's facilities. Fortunately, she managed to kill some of the beetle monster troop, but the damage caused by her attack was quite severe. From inside the control room, Freon ordered the knights to look for the Chimera beetle or the commander who led the beetle monsters. All beetle monsters will automatically retreat if they find and kill the Chimera beetle. Surprisingly, after Masora managed to kill the Chimera beetle, the beetle army still continued to appear. Kanata said that, most likely, there was more than one Chimera leading the attack, so they should find another Chimera. On the other hand, Yuri and Chloe were starting to worry about the beetle troop that had successfully invaded Mistogan Island. But Lloyd assured them that Kanata would definitely overcome the beetle army and protect Mistogan Island from the enemies. Back to Kanata, who ordered Rico to find Chimera using her clairvoyant vision power. After scanning various areas, she managed to find the presence of a giant beetle moving from one direction. Then Kanata ordered Masora to deal with the beetles that entered from the island gap, and Lecty would be assigned to deal with the beetle troops that had infiltrated the city area, while Kanata would try to kill the Chimera beetle. Suddenly, several troops of beetles approached Masora and shot light at her. Fortunately, Kanata could move quickly and instantly save her from the attack. After that, Kanata began to use his ultimate sword technique and used all the magical energy he had to deal with the beetle army. With lightning speed light, he shot toward the Chimera beetle and fired a blast cannon at the monster. As a result, he managed to kill the Chimera, and the entire beetle army retreated from Mistogan Island. Yuri and the other Sky Wizard Knights finally realized that Kanata had defeated Chimera. After the fight against the Beetle army ended, the match between the academy teams resumed. Misora and her team felt confident that they could beat the opposing team, but during the match, they lost by a large difference in points. Although Kanata had previously been optimistic that his team would win, he was not surprised by the defeat because it was their first match. A few days later, the head of the Sky Wizard Academy received a proposal from the Sky Wizard Security Division to speed up their training program and conduct much more realistic training. Since the Beetle troop invasion incident that happened the other day, Kanata began to train his team harder. Kanata asked his 3 students to burst hundreds of balloons in the sky, but unfortunately, they could still not unite their strength. They attack the enemy separately in different ways and do not fight as a team. Soon after, Masora shoots erratically in all directions. Rico prefers to dress up because she is lazy to fight, while Lecty panics because there are many balloons surrounding her. On the other hand, Freon suddenly held a meeting to find out who should be responsible for the damage to the facilities in the city center. After she discovered that the person who caused the damage was Team Kanata, she decided to suspend Team E601 for a few days. Besides that, Freon plans to dismiss Kanata from instructor duties because he can still not make the E601 team grow. Kanata is considered to have failed to teach the importance of teamwork and attack strategies in a fight. Meanwhile, Kanata's team looked annoyed after hearing the Academy's decision to suspend their team. Even though their team had fought hard to repel the Beetle army, that action didn't seem to get any appreciation at all. But Kanata didn't care about that and focused more on preparing their team for an inter-team tournament called the Mistogan Tournament. He plans to register his team so they can participate in the tournament and is determined to win the match. But that day, Kanata was called back to the Sky Wizard Academy head's room, and Freon said he had been dismissed from his duty as an instructor. However, he didn't mind if he was fired from the job, but he convinced Freon that he was the only person who could train the 3 girls. He said he didn't care about the Academy head's decision because he had promised to train the E601 team to be stronger than any other team. Kanata even challenged Freon. If his team managed to win the Mistogan tournament, the party would have to revoke the suspension penalty given to his team. Feeling that Kanata's team will not be able to win the tournament, she decides to accept the challenge. Arriving in class, Kanata explained about the Mistogan tournament and the agreement he had made with the head of the Academy. After explaining all that, he told Masora and the others that the draw for the tournament would be held tomorrow. In the evening, Freon took Yuri, Lloyd, and Chloe to the Sky Wizard Research Center to show the progress of Beetle monster research. They researched the body parts of the chimera they had managed to get after the attack the other day. Suddenly, a male researcher named Real said that the chimera they studied this time had slightly different characteristics, whereas the chimera had an extraordinary regeneration ability. This indicated that the chimera had evolved into a more dangerous creature, so for that reason, the Sky Wizard wanted to speed up the training process at the Magic Academy. On the next day, all tournament members gathered in one place to take their respective lottery numbers. Due to the highly randomized system, the lowest level team may encounter the highest level team. But fortunately, Kanata's team met a team that was on the same level as their team in the early rounds. On that occasion, Kanata met Yuri, who registered her team for the tournament. Even though her team members seemed superior, he remained optimistic and determined to win the match until the final round. Hearing that, Masora and the other 2 girls looked confused because they thought they only needed one match. A few days later, a male Magic Academy student from Class E was suddenly chased by a mysterious figure. In the end, the student suffered severe injuries from the mysterious figure's attack. News of the attack began to spread among the Academy students and created fear, so Yuri, Chloe, and Lloyd were assigned to investigate the case. While Yuri and the others discussing the matter in a cafe, Yuri was reminded of past memories when Kanata saved her from an attack by an Academy student who missed her. At that time, Yuri, who was a new student at the Magic Academy, seemed impressed by the abilities possessed by Kanata's team. Since then, she began to idolize Kanata secretly. Meanwhile, Kanata is still busy training his team to determine a suitable formation for their fight in the tournament later. He tried to change roles and formations alternately so that each member realized that the role of each member was very important. Unfortunately, Masora and the others still couldn't cooperate well and tended to attack the enemy separately. During intense training, Kanata invited Yuri's team to train with his team so that he could show how a team can work together and fight as a team. Yuri's team showed great cooperation and coordination, allowing them to defeat the enemies and manage their forces effectively. After seeing the cohesiveness of Yuri's team, Masora and the others felt a little less confident, but Kanata managed to revive their spirits with his support. In the afternoon, Yuri invited Kanata to have a private chat at a cafe to discuss something very important. Unbeknownst to them, Masora and Lecty secretly followed them from behind and stalked their conversation. Arriving at the cafe, Yuri asked Kanata to stop teaching the E601 team and start using his abilities for something bigger. She didn't want Kanata to waste his time teaching a team with no hope of winning any tournament. He then said that in the past, when he taught Yuri, she was still having a hard time doing flying magic. He realizes that the E601 team is a team that was ostracized by the Academy, but he believes that he can explore the potential of the team and train them to become a solid team. On the other hand, Lloyd and Chloe came to Freon's office to report on the progress of the assault case they were handling. They found that the attacks that had taken place had similarities and some patterns. Everyone who was the victim of the attack was a student of the Sky Wizard Magic Academy, and the order of the attack started from the lowest level class, namely Class E. Until now, 3 Magic Academy students from Level E, Level D, and Level C have been attacked by this mysterious figure, so it is possible that the next victim would be a Level B student. The next day, suddenly, Level B students were attacked by the mysterious figure. That night, it was finally revealed that the mysterious figure who carried out the attack was Nua, a Sky Wizard researcher obsessed with Yuri and wanted to prove that he was the most powerful person in her eyes. The next morning when Kanata was jogging in the Academy Park, he accidentally ran into Lecty, who invited him to talk for a while. Lecty said their offensive formation was still ineffective because the forward position was unsuitable for Masora, who had ranged attacks. However, Lecty finds it difficult to fill the back position because she relies more on close-range attacks. It turned out that Kanata already knew about it, but he would still use the practice formation because it would be very useful in their tournament later. After that, Kanata took Lecty to the cafe to help serve customers during busy hours so that she understood the purpose of the training he gave. At first, Lecty seemed overwhelmed by serving every customer, but after a while, she finally understood what she had to do in the back position. In the next practice, Lecty began to observe Masora's attack patterns and gave her directions to make more accurate shots. Masora just needed to make sure that every shot she fired was always on target, while Rico and Lecty would take care of the enemies who escaped her shot. Thanks to the extraordinary cooperation, they finally found the right formation and got the right strategy for the tournament later. The next day, Kanata invited his team to clean a room that had not been used for a long time and was full of dust. They had to clean and redecorate the room because it would later become the headquarters for their team. Afterward, he met Yuri and invited her to talk in the afternoon. On the other hand, Lloyd and Chloe were visiting the A-level Magic Academy students who had just been attacked the night before. The two guessed that the next target of the attack would be a Magic Academy student of level S or a student on par with them. Back to Yuri and Kanata, talking together on a park bench. He recalled that he once asked Yuri to turn her weapon into a spear because she had a habit of jumping backward after attacking an enemy. But Yuri insisted on using the sword as the main weapon and never listened to his advice. In the middle of the conversation, Nua suddenly appeared in front of them and intended to attack Yuri as his next target. She then asked Kanata not to interfere in the fight so that she could practice facing her enemies alone. Unfortunately, Nua's magic power and fighting ability were far superior to Yuri's, so she almost suffered serious injuries. When she is cornered and almost dies, Nua expresses his feelings to her and asks her to accept his love. Fortunately, Kanata managed to protect Yuri and thwarted Nua's attack with his sword. The irritated Nua started to move quickly and issued consecutive attacks at him, but Kanata managed to overcome all of the attacks and even gave a counterattack. Feeling increasingly cornered, Nua decided to hit Yuri's body until she fainted and ran away from the place. That night, Nua felt frustrated because Kanata had foiled his plan to get Yuri. Not long after that, Nua suddenly heard a mysterious voice from the Chimera's body in front of him. It turned out that Chimera tried to instigate him to make him use his power to make Nua stronger. On the other hand, Kanata took Yuri to the girls' dorm room so that she could rest in that place for a while. Yuri, who initially felt awkward with Misora and the other two girls, gradually grew closer to them. Shortly after that, she returned to her dormitory after Kanata calmed her down by giving her a keychain. The relationship between the three girls and Kanata's team is getting closer. They are getting more active in training together to become stronger. They are getting better at working together and strategizing battles during their training. When the day of the tournament arrived, Masora suddenly became less familiar with Lecty and Rico, as if she was hiding something from them. Kanata, who noticed Masora's change in attitude, tried asking what really happened to her. Masora then reveals that she feels like a burden to Lecty and Rico. Then Kanata convinced her that the assumption was false and suggested that she look at the surrounding situation to know what to do. At the time of the match, Misora still lacked confidence, but she remembered Kanata's words earlier. She realized she could now move freely without the enemy's resistance, so she used the opportunity to charge magic energy into her sword and prepared to fire cannon fire. The cannon attack knocked down all opposing team members so that Kanata's team could win their first match and qualify for the next round. At the same time, Nua is conducting a secret experiment by extracting the Chimera's power into a liquid and then injecting the liquid into his body. Back to Kanata's team, who had won match after match in every round they had passed. After successfully getting rid of various opposing teams, they finally qualified for the final round and had to face a team under Yuri's guidance. A few days before the final match was held, news about the E601 team, which was threatened to be disbanded if they didn't win the match, began to spread in various media, so many media were interested in broadcasting the final match live. When the final match arrived, most of the audience preferred to support Yuri's team because they still considered Kanata's team to be a team of traitors. But Misora and the other two girls tried to stay strong to prove their worth to many people. During the match, Kanata's team prepared to face Yuri's team consisting of Lily, Sasha, and Greg. At first, the two teams seemed to fight evenly, but in the middle of the match, Yuri's team began to dominate the battlefield and dominate the battle. This is because her team has analyzed every match pattern from Kanata's team, so they can find out the attack pattern of each member. As a result, there was a chase between the two teams where each member of Yuri's team began to chase members of Kanata's team. The show bored the audience because they had already predicted that the team that would win the match was Yuri's. However, as it turned out, all of that was part of Kanata's team plan, where they wanted to lure Yuri's team members to a certain position so that Misora could carry out an attack that could defeat all enemy members at once. In the audience, Kanata told Yuri that her team had arrived after his team, but it was his team that managed to lure her team into that position. Hearing that, Yuri looked at the battlefield and realized that Kanata's team's plan had worked. Soon after, Misora immediately flew up and began preparing an explosive attack before finally firing the cannon blast. Then all members of Yuri's team fell to the ground, so Kanata's team won the match, and all the spectators looked surprised by the victory. Unfortunately, the excitement of Kanata's team's success didn't last long. Nua suddenly appeared in the center of the broadcast room and spread terror throughout the arena. After Nua blew up the broadcast, he appeared in the center of the arena where everyone had been successfully evacuated first. He approached Yuri, whom he greatly admired, and began expressing his love for her. Fortunately, Kanata managed to protect Yuri and threw Nua so that he was thrown far away. Nua then threw several chairs at him, making one of the irons from the chair hit his left leg. Seeing that, Yuri tried to fight against him, but Nua, who became stronger, could easily break her sword. Fortunately, the three girls from Kanata's team were still at the scene and attacked Nua with a very powerful laser shot. Misora attempted to fire bullets of light at Nua, but the attacks did not affect him. Even he became stronger and turned into a huge terrifying monster. The monster gripped Yuri's body so tightly that she began to lose consciousness. Seeing that, Kanata, who had revived, became very angry and used full power mode to deal with the monster. He started to attack the monster with his legendary magic sword, but the monster could still withstand Kanata's attack using his tentacles. At that moment, Misora, Lecty, and Rico combined their strength to attack the monster simultaneously. Thanks to this cooperation, they managed to free Yuri and Kanata from the monster's trap so that they could escape from that place. Unfortunately, Nua suddenly attacked Yuri's body and intended to harm her with his tentacles. Then Kanata quickly protected her with his body and sacrificed himself until he fell to the ground. Seeing their loved ones injured, Yuri and the three girls began to unite their strength and attack Nua simultaneously. Thanks to their cooperation, Yuri managed to kill the monster after she fired the anti-regeneration spear into his body. After the monster was defeated, the situation in the arena was safe again, and several injured people were successfully evacuated to the hospital. After Kanata's team won the tournament, Freon fulfilled her promise to lift the suspension penalty for his team. However, they didn't get a reward for new weapons or level ups, so they were disappointed. A few days later, Kanata invited Yuri as a new student in Team E601 because they had agreed that the mentor of the losing team should join as a student of the winning team. The anime closes with a scene where Kanata keeps his promise to train the exile team to become the best team at the Sky Wizard Academy. The moral that can be learned from this anime is, never underestimate other people because everyone must have their own advantages and disadvantages.